Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming to our talk this morning. My name is Dr. Nicola Lubold. I am a research scientist currently with Google, but I am here today to help talk through some of the wonderfulness that SpliceGeist is leveraging when it comes to AI and machine learning. And
I'm Kit. Okay, we'll move on. I'm not that interesting. So everyone, I think who's had anything, I don't know, experiences with post-production, I think we've all had some ghost stories at one point or another. We've all felt the pain. I think it's because we all tend to live in a dark room with no windows and no doors. And I was told I wasn't allowed to make Haunted Mansion jokes. I do have a ghost story. Yeah?
do tell.
Okay. So many years ago, it must have been 15 years ago now, on the last exorcism. It was 3:00 in the morning after a very long conform color session. We had just finished making the DCP, or I had just finished making it. I was all alone. We started watching the film. It gets to a point towards the end where we had built in some digital artifacts, and it would go, and the camera would all go crazy, and then the scene would continue, right? Except at 3:00 in the morning, we got to one of these artifacts that we had created, and everything afterwards turned red and solarized. And I was like, okay, well, that's a little creepy by myself at 3:00 in the morning. I'm just going to rewind it and see if it goes away. And I did. I rewound it. Everything normal. Everything's in color. Everything looks great. We get to another artifact. Everything continues normal. We get to another artifact. Everything goes red and solarized. And I'm like, this is too creepy of a part of a film for it to start giving me troubles now. So I went outside to the hall to get some coffee, and all the lights went dark. And I was like, okay, this is starting to get a little freaky. Long story short, the lights were on timer. Technical problem. I screamed and scared the security guard. All because of a technical problem.
Did you figure out the technical problem in
The glitches were also a technical problem. It wasn't a gremlin living in the projector. At the end of the day, most of these issues are always technical problems that we run across. And sometimes with issues like conform, it's simple things like something got renamed, or worst case scenarios where somebody wiped out all the time code, or you're just flat out missing clips. Most of the time, it is technical issues. And that is primarily what we started, digging into these. What are these technical issues? Can we solve them? We've sort of, over the course of many, 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 many years, come to accept a lot of this as just normal chaos that we deal with. We're used to it. We're used to there being thousands of visual effect shots that are coming from multiple vendors. We're used to, a complicated conform taking over 40 hours. We've gotten used to this. And the cost of that chaos has normally been, we're just going to throw more bodies at it. Throw more money, throw more meat bags at a problem. And the problem is, that's costly and it's expensive. And we've accepted it as normal. And I don't want to accept that as normal anymore. But the big question is, why don't the ghosts die? Why have we not been able to automate this? And that is what the doctor is for.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about why the ghosts haven't died. And we've done quite a bit of work in this already, right? Things have been automated. If you want to go to the next slide for me here. There's a lot of requirements and characteristics to every project that's, similar, but also unique to every project. Kit talked about a couple of them on the second slide of this presentation. And the challenge with these is that every time you have a new project, you get something a little bit different. you could have the same project with the same team and go to conform, and you're going to end up with different problems as well, right? So it's not just every new project brings new problems. The same project could actually bring you new problems. If you want to go to the next slide, what we refer to this as in many different industries is the long tail, right? You get a lot of common requirements that you see frequently. They are things that you can address because they are the same. But then you get this long tail of edge cases that are not the same, and you need different solutions for each time you see this new edge case. If you go to the next slide, this is a common, uncommon problem, right? Every industry, not just yours and ours, see this, right? We see it in healthcare. We see it with automobiles. We see it in security, where you get these edge cases that have severe implications, but they don't happen very frequently, but they still mean that it's a lot of time and effort to address them. And with current automation up to this point, this has been solved with, if you go to the next slide, mostly rule-based approaches. So by this, I mean, we try to figure out all of those edge cases. Every time we encounter a new edge case, we make a new rule. And obviously there's limitations to this. You have to know all your predefined scenarios. You need to be able to scale that up. So every time you get a new problem, you make a new rule. If you want to grow that to a larger domain, a bunch of problems within the same space, you have to make a bunch of rules to address that. And this is time consuming. Every time you encounter a new problem, you got to update that rule. And so a lot of limitations with rule-based approaches. You may have seen a folder like you see on the next slide here, where you have scripts, a dozen macros to address the previous issues you've seen in previous projects. Get a new project, you have a script that addresses this, but it needs to be tweaked. So you get a version 2. You end up with a version 10 eventually. And the largest challenge with this is the person that makes all of these eventually leaves. So then you have this knowledge gap with all of these files that can fix your problems, but no way to know how to address them. And what we really need to close this gap is some awareness, learning, and adaptation, right? Rules are one thing, deterministic systems are one thing, but what people are really good at is adapting. We're good at being aware of things, and we're good at learning. With advances in technology, we're actually getting to the point now where we can design systems that do a little bit of that as well when it comes to technical problems. Now we are being able to design machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI systems that can apply some of that same awareness, some of that same ability to learn, and some of that same ability to adapt to a new situation and apply something I know about an old situation to design a solution to my new problem. And so if you go to this last slide here, what we're talking about is going from something that's automated to autonomous, right? So you may see this with vehicles and cars. Self-driving cars, we call them autonomous for a reason. That's because they're able to make decisions. They're able to strategize. They're able to execute. They don't do that quite perfectly yet. But the system that Kit's going to talk about is taking advantage and going beyond some of that capability to be similarly autonomous, to make decisions, to strategize, and take some of that manual effort and load and those technical tasks that you need to do in conform and dailies and VFX, and do it more quickly and take some of that load off of people so they can actually do the creative side of development. So Kit's going to talk a little bit more now about how SpliceGeist does that.
Which leads us to the exorcism of all your problems. So we built this ourselves. I mean, this is a platform that was built by people who sat in the chair. I mean, we were conform artists, editors, post producers. We've experienced these issues ourselves personally in various seats throughout the whole post-production pipeline. I have built post facilities throughout the world now. I've seen the same challenges no matter where you go in every facility. Sometimes you approach it slightly differently, but the issues are still there. And I didn't want to create something that was written by engineers looking out, because they tend to not understand all of the intricacies and the issues and problems that we really dive into when we actually try to conform. So we had to build a platform that sort of thinks and works like a person does. It needs some kind of structure. It needs some balances. It needs pillars. So the way that we structured this was, okay, what do we do if we're in a facility? You onboard a project. Okay. So we created structured onboarding. We gave it a knowledge base that's sort of similar to, how a facility works. Somebody that's sitting there doing the work has some knowledge. And when they don't understand something or they come across something new, they escalate that to somebody else who can solve the problem. So with the structured onboarding, essentially we try to capture as much of the project details as possible. We ask all of the same questions that you would normally ask, how many cameras did you shoot? What frame rate did you shoot? What resolution did you shoot? What frame rate did you have multiple frame rates? What resolution did you shoot in, and did you frame for something else? Do you have a framing chart? Unfortunately, a lot of times the answer is no. And that's okay. But if you have one, it's great. We'll take it, right? All that information and stuff we try to capture up front so that we understand what it is you have. CDLs, FDLs, everything you can throw at it, we'll take, just like a facility would take. And it takes that information and it applies its own knowledge base to understanding how to fix your problems, fix the issues that come in as we try to conform or do dailies or do visual effects polls. It understands different camera formats. It understands different frame rates. It understands different color spaces. These are things that it has learned in the process, like a person would learn. It figures out how to troubleshoot. It is not just some algorithm that's like, okay, well, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, going down its checklists of, a dozen different Band-Aids that it's trying to apply. And then we gave it sort of confidence-based escalation. So we wanted to try everything itself first. Try to solve my problem. I do not want to be bothered unless you really can't figure it out. So it goes through and it tries to figure everything out. It gives itself different rules. If there's some medium confidence in there, then it's like, okay, what do I know to try to attack this problem? And then if it really just can't figure it out, then that's when we flag a human. And we say, okay, look, these are the things we couldn't figure out. And sometimes it's as simple as we're missing the media. Like we don't have the media. I need somebody to go get that because we don't have it. SpliceGeist is made up of 4 different modules. We'd made it modular so you could expand it, shrink it, just take what you need. If you're only doing dailies, there's no reason to also build out conform and VFX and deliverables. If you're only doing conform, there's no reason maybe to do dailies. We tried to make this something that was scalable and useful across the board. In that, all of the different modules are connected. So the onboarding sort of links everything. The dailies do have metadata that applies to all of the different modules. If you have dailies, the modules will talk to each other. So the dailies module will talk to the conform module. The VFX module will talk to dailies and conform. They'll all talk to the deliverables module. They sort of are interconnected to be able to communicate with each other to figure out what needs to happen and what needs to get done. This is actual working software and actually hardware, which you can come take a demo with us after we're done here. This isn't something that's just an idea. It is actually working. We had a feature film that we just finished from Sweden. Oh, this was a nightmare production, right? It had all the problems that you could think of. There was there were missing clips. The company that the data managed all of this just dumped everything into one folder. And so clips that had the same name ended up overwriting each other. Timecode got zeroed out. The editor renamed all the clip names and real names. I mean, it was it was probably one of the worst nightmare projects I think I've gotten. I mean, it's intense. The way that we sort of attack the problem is, I guess it's coming from different angles, right? So we have like a core brain that sort of understands all of the tools that are under its belt, and then it sort of assigns those things out. So if we're talking about the conform node, for instance, it's going to look at a project to say, okay, what do I know that I can send to the conform node to help put this together and build out all of my issues. And when there are issues like missing media, missing data, missing time code, it will check to see if any of that originated from any of the other modules, because we've built in hooks to sometimes save some of that stuff. So if your editor did go in and wipe out all of the time code, there are ways sometimes to be able to go back and get it. And the idea is that this is where the ghost stories end.
No more hauntings at 2 a.m. No more red screens.
No more red screens.
While watching The Exorcism.
Yeah.
With that, obviously you can come get a demo later today. What questions do you all have?
Okay, so I get sort of the theoretical construct, but what I can't wrap my head around is what exactly is your software looking at? Are you looking at a timeline in a nonlinear editor to get the information?
Yeah, it's a great question. So when it comes time to conform, right, we're gonna turn over to the system. So it would be just like a normal turnover. So if it's coming from Avid, then it would be an AAF with the original camera media. If it's coming from Premiere, then an XML with the original camera media. And then so we parse the AAF or the XML or EDL, if that's what you have. And we'll look for problems to try to sort out from there. And then we build with the media your timeline in Resolve so that your conform is actually finished. We'll try to get it as finished as possible for color. Now, there are times where sometimes doing the upres from like your Avid project or your Premiere project to Resolve, sometimes a change in resolution will change, effects that you may have had. So sometimes there's a creative element in there that's like, okay, we want to change the way that this looks, but that's a creative thing. And so it gets flagged as like, hey, there's a creative fix that you should come and look at. So we try to stay away from the creative side and just do the technical problems so that everything can get built out and we can spend more time solving creative things.
Okay, that's good. One other question, just I didn't see any mention of audio. What about audio sync issues?
So audio, we're not doing audio. Audio for dailies or audio
for the final
for like mix
form and the final mix.
Yeah. So we're not doing audio. We got this question yesterday, actually. We put a pin in building out audio, like automating audio, but it's still in the pipeline, probably for a future build out. It's just not something that we're focused on right now.
So for dailies, is it doing the actual second source sound sync and it's actually verifying that? Or is it taking the sidecar files and saying, yes, this would go here, and it's just verifying that you have a match? Is it actually making the derivative, or just saying we have what we need and it's a checksum essentially?
Yeah, no, it does both. So because it can see, it will actually check, okay, look, does this line up? Does it match? Okay, my metadata all matches, but does it actually, like, does the clapper hit where the peak hits? Because that's an issue sometimes. Maybe the time code matches up, but you could still be a couple of frames off, or it could be something completely different. right? So that is something that it will do and check. But that's part of the machine learning side.
And then to kind of expand on the stuff it already knows, for the onboarding or the knowledge base, how do we update that? So if it's like we have our own SOPs and guidelines that we then feed into it and that can learn and grow, or is it just by doing and touching more projects?
Absolutely. You could feed your documentation into it and it will incorporate that into its model.
Cool. Sweet. And I hope to hear more about audio in the future.
We got extra time, guys. We left a lot of time here for questions. Sure we don't got any more? We know we could have been more detailed in this presentation. Ask those questions.
There you
I have
go.
a question for you.
Go for it.
You kind of mentioned it, but is this a software solution? Is it in the cloud?
You know the answer to that.
I do know the answer to this question.
It's a software hardware solution. So no, we're not doing in the cloud as of right now, mainly because of TPN compliancy. It was easier. We didn't want to touch media and having it go up and down in the cloud somewhere. So this is an on-prem solution, not a on the cloud solution.
The hardware will also be customized to needs. So as Kit talked about, there's various nodes to this. So if you don't need all the nodes, then we'll not give you a massive piece of hardware. It'll be customized.
I have a question about the conform. So your auto conform, it actually conforms the media, EDL or XML.
Yeah.
Do you need a reference video, burn-in time code? What do you need for the auto conform?
Yeah. So just like you would turn over normally. So reference QuickTime, AAF, EDL.
Now we could facilitate the meetup here.
But yeah, I mean, it's all the same stuff you would normally turn over. So reference QuickTime, it loves the reference QuickTime. It will use the
Burn-in time code,
burn-in time code.
source and sequence.
Ideally, yeah. I mean, whatever we can get, it will use.
What is it? If you didn't have one of those pieces of information, you could still use it?
It just makes it harder because it's the same thing as like if a person does it, right? It attacks it the same way a person does. If something doesn't match up, right? So like if this has happened to me before, right? So if the AAF, you bring in the AAF and it says the time code should be one thing, but the burn-in has something completely different. Okay, then it's going to go, okay, well, what my AAF had didn't work. So what does the burn-in on the reference QuickTime say? And it'll go read that and then go see if we can find that instead, because sometimes that's a problem.
And how does it deal with like aspect ratios, and like is it archival? Many times when we're working with archival footage, the aspect ratio is off, and then when we get the archival master, and that's in the media pool, the time codes don't match. So is it doing a machine vision matching of the clips for the conform?
Yeah, it will do machine vision matching of clips. When it comes to varying aspect ratios, that one, it can handle pretty much all the different aspect ratios that you'd need. It will even take an FDL actually, but yeah, it's sort of. We should talk more because we might run out of time. But the resolutions are going to be dependent upon what it is you want out. So they can all come from different places and end up in as something that's similar.
Okay. What I meant to say is when we're working with archival footage and it's offline, many times it's squished or stretched.
Oh, I got you.
Then the archival, when you get the master file, it's maybe even square pixels or something like that.
Sure.
How does the machine vision deal with that?
I got you. Yeah. So if it is, so if it does come in squished, it will unsquish it. Same thing if it's.
Let's go.
Usually it's this way.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm curious about how it is doing that visual matching. Are you using just like an algorithm? Or are you using some sort of model for that?
So it's model based. which is an algorithm. So a little bit of both. But yeah, it's a trained model.
Okay. What, is this something like, can you give it, a set? Like, can you train the model within the tool, or is it already trained and it just,
It's pre-trained. It's pre-trained to address certain challenges, issues, like based on knowledge and experience,
so it doesn't necessarily train on the camera files that you give it?
no.
But yeah, by that point, it's already been trained. Now, with that said, it does learn. So if there are new things that come about, the backbone of this is basically when we were building this, we were like, okay, let's look at the last 20, 25 years and what's changed. Because it's been a lot. A lot has changed. I mean, 25 years ago, I was still doing film, so when we look at everything that's changed from, film to digital to HDR to Atmos, there's so many different components in that things will continue to change. And so it has to be flexible enough to say, okay, there will be at some point things that are new that I don't know yet. And so how do we learn that? And so it's looking out for those kinds of things, trying to learn when it makes a mistake, how it got fixed. So there will be some adapting that it goes through over time. And the more that it gets used, the smarter it gets.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey guys, I got a quick one.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the conform process, forgive if you already went over this, but say you start with camera raw, you ran analysis on that or the proxies. When you go back to conform and you want to link to a different intermediate or a mixed bag of intermediates, you might have some VFX that are being accelerated, but they're MOV. Then you have some EXRs that are finished. How will that work in the conform? Can we do pointers or give it notes to grab those assets?
Yeah. So do you mean like when you have different layers that are something different, like visual effects?
Absolutely. And the format that they're in. Again, they're working on a temp VFX that's not final yet. It's a placeholder. If I conform against that, I want that to link to expand on what he was saying.
Sure.
But I have a bunch of EXRs that are finished and done, ready to go for that sequence.
Sure. So in those cases, it gets treated like visual effects, and there are multiple ways that you can set up those timelines with foreground, background, composites, temp visual effects layers, approved layers. It will sort of manage the layer structure in Resolve. It tries to not cut in temp VFX because we don't want to accidentally render in temp VFX. This comes from many years of facility work and that happening sometimes. But it will let you, when a client comes in and says, I want to see what it looks like in my timeline. So,
So in other words, you could do that. We could point to it and get that to link. Again, we're looking at it. All the other clips are complete except for that one or two outstanding. Very cool.
Right. Well, thank you everyone so much. We are the booth that is just right at the end of that aisle right there. You remember the number?
Look for a giant glowing ghost.
Yes, look for the ghost. Thank you so much for sticking around, and hopefully we'll see you at our booth.